Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be bringing to you my what to buy first when on a budget guide for the Galactic Republic in Star Wars Legion. So if you are thinking about playing Star Wars Legion and you're trying to figure out what to buy, obviously this will be the first thing you buy, and that's going to be a core set. This is the kind of the starter for getting into everything, and there's probably a couple of other things you probably need to do along with this if you have researched the game a little bit. It's important that you know that it's not a pre-painted, pre-assembled miniatures game, right? Star Wars Legion is a game on sprues where you have to kind of it's mostly on sprues. Some of the stuff in here is actually not on a sprue, but for the most part, the vast majority of it's on sprues. And you're gonna have to use some glue. You're gonna have to assemble your miniatures. If you want to play competitively, and I definitely suggest you prime and paint your miniatures at least a little bit. You are gonna have to get some sprue cutters at some point. You're gonna have to get some glue. There's different types of glue, and there's a whole list of hobby things that you need, and that's kind of beyond the scope of this video. But if you've already gotten past that point, you'll definitely want to start here with a core set. Now, how many core sets should you get? And that's really the question that I'm going to go into with this one as briefly and precisely as I can. You need at least one, but I definitely recommend two. The reason for this is, and it's an expensive box. It's $99 for this box, and I get that is a little bit steep for some folks. So if you're on that much of a budget where you cannot afford a second box, then just start out with one. I would suggest at that point playing the Separatists against the clones in very, very small sample games, and they are outlined in the rulebook here, and then seeing what you think of it and deciding where to go beyond that. However, if you've already kind of been exposed to the game, you already know a little bit more about that, and you definitely are concerned that you want to play Republic, then I definitely suggest getting a second one. One of the things that you can do to kind of mitigate the cost is find somebody else who's looking to play, and maybe they want to play Separatists. Maybe you each buy a core set and you each give each other the stuff for the other one. Like, here, I'll buy two core sets, I'll give you all of the I'll buy a core set, I'll give you all the Separatists, you buy a core set, you give me all the clones, something like that. And that's a way you only have to buy one, and then you split one with somebody else, and that's a good way to go, because all the stuff that you get in here values out to way more than $100. It's a tremendously good value. I've done videos when this first came out of itemizing how much everything would cost retail, and that excludes all of the things that don't have an exact retail cost, like your commanders, right? So what do you get in here? You get 2 units of Phase 1 clone troopers, all right? Those are about $25 each. So you're getting $50 worth of clone troopers. You're also getting a Bark speeder. You're also getting Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're also getting all of that same equivalent for the Separatists side. So you're almost at double value with just the minis alone. And now you add on the fact that on top of all that, you get all the cards you need to play the game. Actually, enough for 2 players worth, which is really cool. You get dice. You get movement tools, you get range finding tools, you get the rule book, and of course, and you get barricades also. All of these things together, it's over a $200 value. So it's tremendous, the amount of value you're getting in here, and you're going to need more of this stuff anyway. The rangefinders break. Your dice are definitely less than what you need. You need at least 2 sets of dice for most games, and honestly, you might want to even consider buying a dice pack on top of this, but 2 sets of dice is enough. You can also use the dice app for your phone if you want. That's totally fine. But especially if you're trying to do any limited play during COVID or whatever, and you don't want to share dice with other people, it's a good idea to have the dice app. That's actually a pretty cool way to go. In the past, we used to use the same person's dice pool so we could ensure that there was no good or bad dice, so nobody had a dice advantage, because honestly, not all dice are created equal. It is possible to get a bum die that tends to roll blanks more often, but regardless of all that, you can always go with the dice app as well if you're on a budget and you're not comfortable with the amount of dice you have. Either way, I think 2 core sets worth of stuff is definitely advantageous. It's definitely a great value, and it gets you enough to just about get to an 800-point game, which is where full games are. Full organized play, sanctioned, official type of games. That the game is balanced around an 800-point game. You're also going to need at least 3 core units, and your phase 1 clone troopers are there, you're only going to get 2 in the single core set. So by getting another core set, you're now going to have up to 4. It's going to give you a little bit of options, especially when you start getting into the next couple of things that you can buy. So once we are past the core set, I really like the Phase 1 Clone Troopers upgrade expansion. This particular expansion gives you an extra Phase 1 Clone Trooper unit card, so you can have, and 4 minis. So you can use this to just kind of have one extra Phase 1 Clone Trooper unit. And honestly, as of right now, a naked Phase 1 Clone Trooper unit, even with no upgrades or whatever, is still a pretty good thing to have. A lot of people who run clones like to have spare extra, units without any upgrades or without any extra minis. So is just running the unit card with 4 clones is going to be fine. But the real benefit from here is all of the different possibilities that these 4 minis give you, because they can go into your existing Phase 1 Clone Trooper units and give them lots of cool new capabilities and potential. So you're getting, you're going to get 2 personnel and 2 new heavy weapons that you didn't have access to before. And it's only for Phase 1 Clone Troopers. Even if you just got the 1 core set, you're already getting some new ways to use those 2 units that you already have, plus a potential 3rd unit of Phase 1 clones. And if you've got 2 core sets, this can give you your 5th potential clone unit. Great way to round out the stuff you've got, add to it a little bit, and give new options to the units that you already have. So these are cool. Now, you may eventually want to get multiples of these. I think 2 is probably enough, but if you're really trying to min-max some kind of hardcore build, some players like to get a lot of these. I picked up 3 of these myself. But that was before Phase 2 clones came out, and then there wasn't quite so much a need for a whole lot of these, but these are still really cool. Next up is Rex. I'm going to definitely suggest getting Clone Captain Rex as an early buy when you get into this game. He is another commander. He's going to give you a different list type of option, but also he can go with Obi-Wan Kenobi. So if you're still trying to put together an 800-point list and you're kind of running shy on points and you don't want to buy too many expansions, Rex can be a second commander. You can have up to 2 commanders, so you can run Obi-Wan from the core set and Rex together. Or as time goes on, you can run Rex by himself with clones. Rex is arguably the best commander in the game as of the time of me making this video in November 2020. He's absolutely fantastic, and his command cards really, really work well with the clones. Now, as of the time of me recording this video, there is a potential change to the way clones work that is on the horizon. So, Rex, and again, rules updates and things like that happen over time. Rex is still extremely good, and even if there is some kind of nerf to some of the way that clones share tokens, Rex is still going to be pretty awesome. I'm certain that he's going to be great for a very long time. He's just absolutely fantastic and works in a variety of lists, but especially lists that use clones. And since you have to have at least 3 core, and the only core units available right now for the Republic are clones, you're always going to have clones. Rex is a great guy to have with clones, so Rex is my a very early pick. Next up, I'm going to go with the Republic Specialists Personnel Expansion. Very similar to your Phase 1 expansion, this one is going to have some extra personnel that can go into your Phase 1 Clone Trooper units. This is going to do a lot for this expansion. Now, at the time of me publishing this video, this expansion is not actually released yet, but it is supposed to be coming out in January. And I expect this video to stay out for a long time. But we know enough about what's coming in this expansion, and it's going to be similar in a lot of ways to the Specialists expansions that have always come out before. And again, you're going to get 4 minis. They can go into your existing units that take personnel, so they can go in more than just the Phase 1 clones. But if you happen to get Phase 2s at some point, they can upgrade those units as well. They additionally are going to give you a generic commander option, which can be a leader as a mini into another clone unit, or it can run as a whole unit unto itself, which is really cool. You're going to get a medic in here. You're going to get a comms guy in here. You're going to get a lot of different, 4 different options to outfit your existing units. So I love something that counts as its own unit and can also upgrade your existing stuff. This one, honestly, I think it's just a great buy to get. It's going to work really, really well. You're going to have, by now, if you got the 2 cores, and then you got the Phase 1 expansion plus this, you have so many different ways to build your Phase 1 clones. Right now, it's actually pretty significant. So very, very cool. A great value in this, and it's a cheap expansion too. Next up is the ARC Troopers. Now that we've kind of got a foundation, we want to spread out to the Special Forces type. And our first Special Forces that was revealed for the Republic is a doozy. It's the ARC Troopers, and they are really, really good. You're getting a lot of options in this particular pack. You can run these as a full unit. You can run them as a strike team. You can take the little dudes that are in here. There's Echo and Fives in this particular expansion. You can put those in other units. You're getting... This is, I mean, we talk about value and a great unit. This is both of them. You're getting a ton of value in this pack. You're also getting a great unit. Now, these are a little more advanced because they're going to be on flight stands, and building them is going to be a little bit more complicated because they're going to have that stand. You got to try and get the glue on there and hold them long enough for it to dry. So this is a little bit more of an advanced unit. So I have it a little farther down in the list, but they're amazing. They're a really good unit. These guys might end up being changed a little bit in just how good they are once we see what new rules end up coming out later this month and towards the end of 2020. But still, they're so very, very good. I think even if they end up seeing some kind of nerf or a points adjustment or something like that, they're still going to be a great unit. Plus, it's a special forces option. Plus, it's the first way to really get snipers, and you're getting heavy weapons options that can go into existing units already. So just a really good overall unit across the board. A great expansion to get, and you can get multiple units out of this pack. ARC Troopers are great option, and they're probably one of my favorite. They're almost overpowered. So everything up until this point, I think, is like the highest priority of things to get. I think we're getting into that middle tier right now of things that are like once you're at this point, now play with what you've got for a little while. Okay, you've got a couple of different unit types, and that's great. Now once you're getting a little bit further, if you're going to get one of everything, then you're probably not even needing to watch this video. But now you're playing a little bit further. The Phase 2 Clone Troopers. Now, some people might disagree with where I put these guys on this list. Phase 2 clones are a good core unit. They've been sold out for a long time, and so I know a lot of people have been, if they had a chance to get them, they were trying to jump all over it right away. But they're starting to come back into circulation right now. The reprints have happened. Phase 2 clones are starting to show up more. I have them farther down in the list because you probably already got enough core units to play the game with the 2 core sets, if you did to get the 2 core sets. So you probably don't really need more core units. Also, Phase 2 clones aren't that much different than the clones that you already have. Now, a tournament player might disagree with me and argue that the subtle differences in the improvements in the Phase 2 are game breaking or what have you. They get surge tokens, and they have a different heavy weapon option. And they have a training slot, and so they get that, and that's pretty good. They are an upgrade. They are good units. They're also more expensive. And also, this package is also physically more expensive. This is like $5 more expensive than the Phase 1 clone box. So it's, and then if you get your Phase 1s in the core set, it's even better value there. So while these are more expensive as far as points and how they are weighted in the game, it's also physically more expensive to buy these. So, if you're on a budget, maybe these can wait. But when you get around to it and you want to experiment with different clone options, Phase 2 clones are very cool. They're very good, and they're great sculpts too. These are the first core unit that came out in the hard plastic for Star Wars Legion. So these are all going to be on a sprue as opposed to being in little baggies. And you'll need to use like plastic cement as opposed to super glue on these, is kind of what's recommended. But they're just a good unit. And then the free surge token they get each turn is really going to be helpful as well. So it's nice. A lot of builds, like a lot of the builds that I run, tends to have mostly Phase 1 clones, but usually at least one Phase 2 clone trooper unit in there, because they can, since we can all share tokens and stuff, I kind of want my Phase 2 clones to be one of my main shooters and let some of the Phase 1s kind of generate tokens to buff up the Phase 2. That's kind of like, they're kind of like the spearhead of your core options. But I put them a little bit lower because a better spearhead is those ARC Troopers that I already told you to buy. Since the ARC Troopers came out, I'm like, I don't really need the Phase 2s as much because the ARC Troopers are even better. That's kind of where I rank them. Next up is Padme Amidala. Padme's actually really good. She's just a little bit less important to list building for newer players. She's going to be an operative, so we haven't seen any operatives on my list yet. She's not the only operative available for the Republic right now, but she's a very good operative to have. She's gonna give you some different command cards, and she's going to be able to play a little bit differently with a lot of your lists. She's going to work very, very well with certain characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and she also works well with supporting clones. She's a very, very good support character, plus she can run the whole secret mission thing where she's trying to sneak into your opponent's deployment zone. It's not very expensive, but she's a little more of a, I guess, maybe an advanced unit, and I think she's probably a little bit better for players who've been playing the game for a little bit and are looking for a kind of a change up in their strategy. Now, I caveat all of this with, hey, like I said before, if there's something that you really, really want, then just get that first. So if you're a big fan of Padme, and maybe she's the reason why you wanted to play Republic, because you're a big fan of Padme, then you get her right away. If you just really like her, then get her right away. There's nothing wrong with that. She's cheap enough where you can do it. I just feel she fits a little bit better to be a slightly later purchase. And she does team up very well with Obi-Wan Kenobi. She also teams up very well with the next one on this list, Anakin Skywalker. She's a very good teammate for Anakin Skywalker. And so I wanted to put them close together because I think Anakin and Padme are a fantastic team up. Then again, so is Anakin and Obi-Wan. And you could run all three of them together also if you were interested in doing something like that. Although usually just Anakin and Padme or Obi-Wan and Padme or Anakin and Obi-Wan. Usually two of the three tends to be a little more feasible, but you can run all three together if you really want. That's actually a kind of a fun thing to do. But these two are, like Anakin's newer. They kind of represent a little bit more of an advanced play style. And so, while they are both cheap, you're not getting as much out of these. Like you kind of already have support because your clones are support. They can kind of support each other. You kind of already got other commander options with Obi-Wan, who's not that different than Anakin. Again, here, this is probably the biggest example of ignore my advice if you like Anakin and wanted to get Anakin first. You should absolutely do that. And I will say that if you've watched to this point, if you wanted to get Anakin first, then maybe get Padme much sooner than on this list. Anakin makes also a pretty cool first purchase. Granted, you're not going to be able to get up to 800 points with just a core set and Anakin. Although you might be able to get up to 800. Actually, I'm pretty sure you can get up to 800 points with 2 core sets and Anakin. So you can do that. There's alternate ways, right? So you should definitely be influenced by what you think is cool. But if you're just following my advice at this point, Anakin's a good, maybe more advanced playstyle commander because he's got a flaw card. He changes the game up a little bit, and maybe he's better to come into the game once you're a little bit more well-rounded in some of the different tactics. Because he's kind of like high risk, high reward. Next up, the Republic HTRT. Some people might have suggested that you get this sooner. It's not a bad unit. I as somebody who played the Rebels and Empire first, and then eventually came to see this one come out, I was already a little exhausted of HTRT play because I had played a lot of HTRTs when the game was young, and that was the only support option we had, or at least for Rebel players. So the Republic HTRT is very, very similar, and while not exactly the same, it does have a few new tweaks and design features that the Rebel HTRT does not have. I have it lower on the list because it's a little bit more of an expensive expansion. The vehicles and the bigger boxes tend to be a little more expensive. You're getting a little more plastic in there. But also, you've already got a support in your Bark speeder that came in your core set, and if you got 2 core sets like I recommended, you already have 2 supports. So, and you can only have a max of 3. So do you really need, should an ATRT be that high up on your list? Maybe. If you really like the armored vehicle kind of mentality, then maybe bump this one up a little bit. But for me, I figure we've already got 2 supports. If we're following the list, we don't really need that third one quite just yet. So this is why I have it a little bit farther down. It does offer some differences in play style for support. The Bark is very fast, whereas this is a little bit slower. It's a little bit more defensible, whereas the Bark is faster and more easily killed. Right? So there's a little bit of a difference in play style. The Republic ATRT is really good for staying alive. It's really good for using the fire support ability that your clones have. But at the same time, I don't think you're getting as much out of it for it being a slightly more expensive expansion. Next up, talking about expensive expansions, this one's a little bit lower on the list because it is a doozy. It's a whopper, but you're getting a big old tank, right? The TX-130 Saber class fighter tank. look, this is a cool expansion, but it's also the most expensive expansion for the Republic. So I have this late and low down on the list because you're on a budget, and you probably don't want to start with the one of the most expensive things that's really, I guess, optional. Now, that being said, it's also it's weighted very heavily, so it's gonna help push your list up to 800 points kind of sooner. And if you're a big fan of tanks and stuff, then sure, you could go for this like first or second. You definitely could if you've got the budget for it. It's an expensive tank, and it's beautiful, and it's awesome, and it's got its own set of rules. It's a hover vehicle. It's got some really cool long range. It's got this beam weapon. It's got lots of cool stuff. I really like it. And it's beautiful to have on the battlefield, for sure. I actually have 2 of these. You can run a max of 2 heavies, but you don't have to have any heavies in your list. So you don't really need one right away. But once you're starting to fill out your list and you want to add something really cool, this does make a great addition to your army. And it makes a great addition to certain builds. A lot of times you kind of want to build around the tank, though. This is actually a really nice thing to run with somebody like Padme, who can actually pass this thing tokens, which is like, oh, did you want to use my you want a free aim? No problem. I've got an aim and a dodge. Oh, did you want to stand by, Mr. Tank? Well, Padme can do that for you, right? And so this is going to be a really fun one to have, but it is more expensive. Next up, I'm going to go with the Phase 1 Clone Trooper unit expansion. This came out with the launch of the Clone Wars. It's really the same thing you've already got in the core box. If you just happen to want one more, then go for it. It's really not a great great value at this point, because you probably have more than enough Phase 1 Clone Troopers already. So, but if you just happen to want just one more, and don't really feel like buying a whole nother core set, this is one way to do that. They are a little cheaper than the Phase 2 clones because they're made in a soft plastic, so they're slightly less quality than a lot of the other minis that we're getting now, because at a certain point, FFG stopped making soft plastic minis and started making harder plastic on a sprue. And this was kind of towards the tail end of the soft plastic stuff. So these guys are still in soft plastic. They're a little cheaper because of that, but still, it's your better value is still buying the core sets. Like I talked about at the beginning of the video. So I rank these guys pretty low. And then last on the list is the Bark Speeder unit expansion. The Bark, you've already got one, or hopefully 2. And then the ATR, if you wanted to get a third support, I would definitely say get the ATRT. You're going to get something different. So I don't really suggest buying the Bark Speeder. The only really redeeming factor for the Bark Speeder is if you want the alternate sculpt, because they have alternate Bark Riders that have a kind of an alternate sculpt on them. So there's something different to be gained from this. Or if you bought 2 core sets and you really, really like the way the Bark Speeder works with its compulsory move, it's very, very fast. And if you just really want triple Barks, I don't really see that being too much of a thing, but it's a possibility. So it's just not very cost effective for you to be buying stuff that comes in the core set individually. So I want to talk about a couple of extra buys, things that aren't specific Republic expansions at this point. And first thing is the upgrade card pack. This is a really good pack to get. It's going to get you a lot of upgrade cards that weren't available to a specific faction. So, and this is good for anybody who's playing the game. It's got stuff from all factions. As at one point, they didn't want you to have to say, hey, if you're just getting in with the Clone Wars, but you wanted some upgrades that came, during the first year or 2 with the Rebels and the Empire, we don't want you to have to go back and buy those old expansions. You're getting a lot of upgrades here. And if you wanted multiples of certain upgrades or whatever too, this is just another way to get that. So the upgrade, and it's super cheap. It's like $10 or something like that. So really cheap, and a lot of different cards and list building options, force upgrades, things like that maybe you just didn't have access to before. Great card to have. The Crashed Escape Pod. This one is worth pointing out. It's not super cheap. You're going to spend a little over $30 for it, but unless of course you can find it on sale, because you're buying a terrain piece and a scenario pack, and there are many terrain, or what they call battlefield expansions. Some of them I'm not even mentioning, because some of them don't really offer a whole lot outside of maybe a scenario. Now, battlefield expansions generally include a piece of terrain and then like a scenario that you can play with someone else. And usually that's like 1 or 2 missions that kind of go into each other. So like, hey, we're going to play each other 2 games in a row, and the winner of the first game gets kind of a bonus in the second game, kind of homebrew scenarios. And those can be fun if you're looking for something like that, or if you like the piece of terrain, you can do something like that. But they're not usually good for being on a budget. This one is an exception to that because in addition to the escape pod piece that it comes with, and in addition to the scenario that it comes with, it also comes with C-3PO and R2-D2 as units that you can use in normal games outside of this scenario. And that's a big deal. Unfortunately, it's just one unit. Right? It's the R2-D2 unit, and you can include C-3PO in his unit. This is used for both the Rebels and the Republic. He's got basically 2 different versions, and they're both the same, but one is for the Rebels, one is for the Republic. He's also going to have command cards to run R2-D2 as an operative, and he's a really cheap operative, which makes him a really good inclusion in a lot of lists, especially as you get more competitive. But the problem is he's so expensive for one small unit. You're spending almost you're spending about more than what you'd pay for like an HTRT. He's the cost of like a medium to heavy sized vehicle for just an R2-D2. So the cost is extremely high for what you're really getting, unless of course you really want that escape pod terrain piece, and it's usually not the best value buying the terrain pieces that they've made. It's just because there's so many terrain companies out there that give you much better value if you're buying terrain. So this one I'm including it because there's gameplay. There's gameplay value to this for tournament level games. Speaking of other Battlefield expansions, Vital Assets. This one is much cheaper and comes with some great new cards. Now there's some pieces in here. There's some plastic in here. The plastic's actually kind of optional, but it's fun to dress it up. You've got your hostages, and you got mines, and you've got carts, and you got supply crates and things like that. But those all go along with the new deployment, objective, and condition cards that come in here. And this one is the biggest one. Once your game has grown kind of stale, and if you're just playing local, for fun, by the time you want to go and play a little more competitively, you'll definitely want to pick up Vital Assets because it adds lots of new options to your cards, to your battle plan cards, and these are big ones that really change the game. So this one, it's actually a really good value, but a new player might not see that value because you're still learning the initial cards that kind of come with the initial deployment objective and condition cards. And then we've got Priority Supplies as the last one I put on here. This one, very similar to Vital Assets. It does have a new condition, deployment, and objective card, but it's only got one new one. And it does have, look, it's got some new stuff. It's got moisture evaporators and crates and things like that you can use, but they're really just for decoration, and they don't really function like terrain does. So like if you have like a moisture evaporator would be an objective in a game, so you could put that miniature of the moisture evaporator there, but it doesn't actually count as terrain because an objective can't actually block line of sight. So there's this weird rulesy thing. But you can totally use those as just normal pieces of terrain anyway, and just put them next to buildings and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of fun in this pack, but the real reason to get this pack, if you're planning to play competitively, is to get the condition, objective, and deployment card that come in here, because those will carry over to competitive games. And that's my list, guys. That's my list of what to buy when on a budget. Hopefully it made sense to you. Hopefully it was helpful. If I missed anything, be sure to ask me down in the comments section. I also have a giveaway winner to announce, so I'm going to do that in just a minute. But basically, I run giveaways all the time, and I have a chance to win. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. So I do appreciate everybody who has done that and joined. I'm going to be running more giveaways. I'm going to start another one immediately after this one's over. So, there's always more chances to win. Plus, 12 Days of Life Day is happening in December. You have to be a subscriber and leave comments in order to enter to win that. So, and that's basically where I pull from anybody who is a subscriber and who has left a comment. That's where you have a chance to win. So 12 times throughout December, I'm going to be doing surprise giveaways. You don't even know what you're going to get. You might be surprised. So you'll have to watch. And I usually announce winners towards the end of my videos. If you're interested in learning more, there's going to be links down in the video description. So if you're watching on mobile, there's usually going to be an arrow down somewhere over on this side. And if you're watching on desktop, there's going to be a see more button down kind of in the middle below the video. But there's links to my website, crabbok.com, where you can I have a lot of archived data, reviews, and helpful information, plus homebrew expansions. The Legion AI system is there. If you don't have anybody else to play against, you can play against yourself. Or play against the AI system. There's links to my Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a patron and supporting the channel, there's links for that. Also, my Discord. You can hop in Discord and ask questions and interact with the community there. And as well as other links to the merch store if you're looking to get some holiday gifts or stocking stuffers or just some t-shirts, masks, or any kind of cool stuff like that. All of that supports the channel. So if you're interested in any of those links, be sure to check down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, leave all that good, all the whole bang. Click that bell for alerts and all of that. We do have a giveaway winner for the $25 Amazon gift card. That's going to be subscriber Glorfindel. Congratulations, Glorfindel. Go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'll get your contact information. We'll get you squared away. I want to thank you all so much for watching, but especially big thanks to my patrons. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I definitely appreciate you guys, and I could not do this without you. And to everybody else, thank you also for watching, and I will talk to you later. And as always, have a great day. And daylight savings time is terrible and needs to go away.